You got to get her on.
All right, well, let's get started. We're going to head outside where we're going to find David on this hot, hot day with Chuck Cochran talking about getting away for the weekend in your very safe car. Hey, David.
Hey guys, I did a big major no-no when I was on vacation last week. I actually drove 3.5 hours. I didn't even look at my car. I just jumped in it, drove, and was very fortunate that nothing happened to it. Well, a lot of you are going to be out and about traveling for the 4th of July. I would highly recommend that you not do what I did and make sure that your car, especially I was traveling alone, if you're traveling with your family, you need to make sure that that car is in good working order. With me, we have Chuck Cochran. He's with Highland Tire and Auto Service, and this is the big travel season. Chuck, let's talk first of all about the big thing that breaks cars down, and then we'll get into some specific things on the car. When people are traveling out and about, what's the #1 thing that causes somebody to have to pull over to the side of the road?
Well, the #1 cause of a mechanical breakdown is belt failure or hose failure,
which nobody ever thinks about until they fail. Well, let's talk more about that in a minute. I want to start over here, and we'll kind of go in order on the car that we have set up. Let's start with the tires. That's a big one. I think people think tire pressure about 35 psi, and that's about it.
Well, that's true. Well, it varies from car to car, and there's a common misconception on what air pressure you should run in your tires. A lot of people look at the side of the tire, and there is an air pressure stamp on the side of the tire. That is not what is recommended for your vehicle. That is a maximum limit or a do not exceed. It means the tire is not designed to carry more air than that. The correct place to check your air pressure is if you open your door. There's a door placard inside your door.
Is there one on this one?
There is.
Let's get a shot of that, because I had no clue of that.
The door placard on this vehicle says 32 psi.
Okay.
The tire says 51 psi.
Really?
Again, that is not what is correct for your vehicle. The door placard is, or it's in your owner's manual.
So most people are probably running around with overinflated tires.
If they do it themselves, it's a very common practice that they overinflate them.
And I think a lot of people do that.
Well, I think they do too.
Because that's until the second, that's what I was looking at to go by. I think I'm running like 40 psi in my car right now.
Well, it's also in your owner's manual, and of course we check your air pressure anytime the vehicle's in our shop, but when you check your air pressure in your tires, always check the air pressure in your spare tire. As inconvenient as it is to have a flat tire, it compounds the problem if you don't have a functional spare. So.
And most people will ride around with that spare tire sitting in their trunk from the time they bought the car. They never look at it, never think about it, right?
That's true.
So you need to make sure that that's up and running just in case you do blow a tire. Let's get into the interior of the car now, and let's just start on this side. We'll start with the battery. What do we need to know?
Well, look at your battery, make sure there's no corrosion around your cables. Make sure they're tight. You can wiggle them to see if they're loose. So.
That's the cleanest battery I have ever seen in my life. Now we've often heard that if you do have corrosion, you can pour Coke over it. That'll fix it up. Is that old wives' tale, or does that really work?
Well, you can use Coke or baking soda. You sprinkle it on there and get a toothbrush, and you can clean that off.
Any no-nos that we need to know with cleaning the battery when we're talking about electricity running through and all of that?
Well,
pretty safe?
Yeah, not really.
Belts and hoses, you mentioned that as the #1 thing, either belt or hose failure as putting people on the side of the road. Is this something that people can check themselves? I look at a belt, I'm seeing a belt. I look at a hose, if it looks okay, it looks okay.
Well, you can. On your belt, some are hard to get to, but you can flip it up on its side. You want to look for any cracks, any glazing, or any frayed edges on the belt. If you have any of those, you may want to have it replaced before you take a trip.
Now, in terms of just general maintenance for belts and hoses, I mean, most people, again, I know me personally, I haven't had anything done to belts and hoses. I've got a 2007 vehicle, and I'm sure they're probably worn, but I don't know. Is there a certain time limit that regardless you just need to get them changed?
Well, your vehicle manufacturer's maintenance schedule will have a suggested interval for inspecting your belts and hoses. A rule of thumb, if it's 6 or 8 years old or over 100,000 miles, they're probably a good candidate for replacing. The rubber products just don't last forever.
Right.
The heat gets to them, the cold gets to them, and if you have that kind of mileage or age on them, probably should have a professional check them.
I guess especially in a climate like this where we do have cold winters and hot summers, so I guess
you generate a lot of heat on your engine too. On hoses, what you want to look for, the hose deteriorates from the inside out.
Right.
So
okay. So that looks perfectly fine.
Great.
Yeah.
But what you do, you squeeze the hose, and you want to feel if there's any cracking in the hose. You want to
Right.
see if there's any soft spots or spongy or hard spots.
Now, one thing to point out, when we say hoses, we're talking about these rubber hoses that run through. We're not necessarily talking about this vent hose here, are we?
No, that's correct. We're talking about the hoses that carry your antifreeze and your coolant to your engine to keep your engine cooled. They run to your radiator to cool coolant down and back to your engine.
Okay. Now, real quick, let's get into fluids. We have about a minute left. First of all, this fluid should never, I don't even get this, this fluid should never be in a car.
Well,
it is in this one, but this is caffeinated whatever fluid. But there are some other things like power steering fluid, brake fluid, radiator fluid. One thing that we need to make sure people know, do you also advise, I've heard a lot of mechanics say this, never put water in a low radiator?
Well,
Unless you're
water's better
desperate.
than nothing.
Yeah, unless you're desperate.
All manufacturers have their own specific antifreeze and coolant. So you need to check with your vehicle manufacturer on what's right for your car.
And finally, Chuck, before we head out, any recommendations in terms of gas mileage? A lot of people are traveling across country in their cars. What can we do to make sure we have good gas mileage?
Well, the proper air pressure in your tire is one. An underinflated tire hurts your gas mileage. It can cause the tire to overheat, which causes premature wear. It can cause it to fail, and it also affects the handling. So proper air pressure is probably going to be your #1 gas mileage saver.
And if you're listening to this and thinking, you know, I don't want to do all of that stuff, I just want to get in the car and go. Well, just get in the car and go. You can head on, see Chuck out at Highland Tire and Auto Service, and he would be glad to help you out, I promise. You can give him a call at 877-8524. He's over there on Hickson Pike. And it's Highland Tire and Auto Service, and Chuck knows what he's doing out at Highland Tire and Auto. Chuck, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, stick around and safe travels to you. More 3 Plus U right after this.